For Chapter 5, I will be answering question 1 and 2. They're kind of merged together, discuss how communication works and what are communication networks. Communication within an organization is how information is passed around, how the members interact with each other. Page 118 says, the network is an abstract structure of perceived communication relationships that function as a set of rules and resources actors draw upon in accomplishing communication behavior. This abstract structure can be broken down into two parts: formal communication networks and informal communication networks. Formal communication networks consist of the rules and the norms established by an organization, and they are important for the day-to-day functioning of the organization. Informal communication networks occur outside the structure of the formal organizational hierarchy. They have been referred to as grapevine or water cooler communication. They are important because they can have an impact on the day-to-day functioning of the organization. Within a formal network, communication happens in one of three directions: downward, upward, and lateral/horizontal. Downward consists of messages that start at the top of the hierarchy and are transmitted down to the lowest rung. Downward communication breaks down into 5 types: job instructions, job rationales, procedures and practices, feedback, and employee indoctrination. Upward communication are messages that start at the bottom of the hierarchy and are transmitted upwards to the highest rung. Upward communication is broken into 4 types: information about the subordinate, information about coworkers and their problems, organizational procedures and practices, and the task at hand. Horizontal lateral communication are messages transmitted to other individuals on the same rung of the hierarchy. There are 4 functions to horizontal communication: task coordination, problem solving, sharing of information, and conflict resolution. Within an informal communication network, there are 4 types: single strand, which is where one person tells the other person; gossip, where one person tells many people directly; probability, one person tells a few who in turn tell more people; and cluster, where one person tells their network and those networks tell their networks. It's like a telephone tree. For Chapter 6, I chose question 2 about Poole and McPhee. So according to Poole and McPhee on page 158, climate is defined as the collective attitude continually produced and reproduced by members' actions. Climate is not so much a variable that managers can manipulate to improve communication and performance. Instead, members of an organization engage in social interactions without full awareness of how their actions impact a larger picture. Individuals not only create a climate through their actions are in turn shaped by that climate. This process is structuration. The climate is developed first with a concept pool. This furnishes the members with words, phrases, and terms to describe the organization. This leads to a kernel climate, the organizational climate that is produced and constantly reproduced through subsequent social actions. When members construct from their concept pool a commonly shared abstraction to capture the basic understanding of the organization. These kernel climates are manifested in particular climates or mini-climates that enable and constrain members' actions in specific organizational situations and settings. The organization that I work in provides direct care to individuals with developmental disabilities. The organizational climate can be conceived as a structuration process by, number 1, the concept pool. This would be the words, phrases, and terms. So, like to provide care and keep safe, trusting, law-abiding, rule-following, goal-setting, integration, community, morals and ethical behavior, routine. This would lead into the kernel climate. Members provide a safe space for clients, following laws and rules. Members help clients achieve their goals and integrate into the community. And then the particular climate or the mini climates include situations and settings such as the office, during training, in the client's home, in the community, interacting with their families. And then question 4 for chapter 6, discuss the various ways of understanding organizational culture. The functional approach sees culture as something an organization has, and if managed well by leaders, tends toward order and stability. The idea that organizations have culture and leaders could adjust them to boost performance. Founders and leaders embed, transmit, and teach culture through culture embedding mechanisms, organizational rites and rituals, and organizational symbols. My organizational culture through a functional perspective, so where I work at, would be the way in which the owner has structured the business, how they decide to pay, the behaviors that they deem acceptable, the certificates for training, CPR cards, first aid cards. The interpretive approach sees culture as something an organization is, and because it emerges from members' interactions and sense-making, tends towards order and stability. Researchers observe an organization and then describe the culture on its own terms rather than fit the observations into a predetermined theory. The critical approach sees culture as something an organization is, but because its culture reflects larger societal discourses that legitimize dominant interests and marginalize others, it tends towards conflict. The postmodern approach sees culture as something an organization is, because it emerges as a response to the constant flux of competing societal discourses, but regards its cultures as unstable since competing discourses produce multiple social realities. Referring to the case study for chapter 5, the concept that I'm referring back to, the formal communication networks, I feel like there were problems with their downward communication. Page 22 talks about effective methods for downward communication. I think the memo that was given to the employees Tuesday morning, along with the bulletin in the break room, were the wrong source for the message. This was an important message, and the changes would have affected all the employees, and it might have been better to receive the source directly from the top of the hierarchy. Maybe staff meetings or one-on-one meetings could have been a more effective communicative medium. There was also communication underload, which it talks about on 121, that occurred within the message. The employees were not provided enough information about the upcoming changes. And then on page 140, the type of informal communication network that was passing the information around, I felt like was the gossip communication network. The source of the message, the memo and the bulletin from the head R was transmitted directly to the employees. And then for chapter 6, the communication at Worcester Manufacturing was occurring within a supportive climate versus a defensive climate. I think that the organization had the 6 characteristics of a supportive climate: description versus evaluation, problem orientation versus control, spontaneity versus strategy, empathy versus neutrality, equality versus superiority, and provisionalism versus certainty. All right, well, that's all I have for this week. I kind of had a problem understanding chapter 6. I'm doing my RRP on that chapter, and then hopefully with that and the discussion, I will understand a little bit more. All right, thank you.